Okay, let's unpack this. I want you to picture a scenario. It is the 85th minute of a match. Doesn't matter if it's soccer, rugby, basketball, the feeling is exactly the same. Your lungs are absolutely burning, your legs feel like they've been filled with wet concrete, and you are just trying to survive.
Just waiting for that whistle.
Exactly. But then the ball rolls loose. It's maybe 30 yards away. The defender sees it. You see it. In your head, you are already sprinting. You're making the play. But the question is, what are your legs actually going to do?
Are they going to respond? Or are they just going to leave you stranded?
Yeah.
That is the absolute nightmare scenario for any athlete. Because earlier in the game, in the first 5 minutes, you'd make that run easily. You probably don't even think about it.
Not at all.
But now, after 50 or 60 of those high-intensity efforts, that is where the game is actually won or lost.
Exactly. And today, we are obsessing over that specific physical wall. We aren't talking about marathon endurance, that slow, steady burn. And honestly, we aren't even talking about being Usain Bolt for one single race.
No.
We're talking about the ability to do it over and over and over again without falling apart.
We call it RSA, repeated sprint ability. It is arguably the holy grail of conditioning for team sports.
And to help us figure out how to actually improve that, not just by guessing, but by looking at the evidence, we are doing a deep dive into a massive paper today.
A really important one.
It's a systematic review and meta-analysis titled The Effect of Combined Strength, Plyometric, and Sprint Training on Repeated Sprint Ability in Team Sport Athletes.
It is a bit of a mouthful, but it's a crucial piece of research.
The authors are Hengxian Liu, Rui Li, Wen Zheng, Rodrigo Ramirez-Campillo, Eduardo Sáez de Villarreal, and Mingxin Zhang. It was published in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine in 2024.
Right, and the reason we picked this specific paper to walk through is that it aggregates data from 13 different randomized controlled trials.
13.
So we aren't just looking at one team's workout routine or one coach's philosophy. We are looking at a bird's eye view of the science involving over 400 athletes.
Okay, so before we get into the how-tos and the results, I want to clarify the stakes here. I think casual fans and even some amateur athletes totally misunderstand the physical demands of these sports.
Oh, completely.
We hear cardio and we just think going for a jog.
Right. Headphones in, steady pace, just zoning out. And that is the biggest misconception out there. Sports like soccer, basketball, rugby, handball, they are what we classify as intermittent sports.
Intermittent.
They aren't steady state. They are chaos. You have periods of low intensity, walking back on defense, jogging to position, and then suddenly, bang, you need a maximal explosion.
It's 0 to 100 repeatedly.
Precisely. The paper mentions the Australian Football League as a prime example. In the AFL, elite players are averaging a minimum of one maximum effort sprint every single minute.
Every minute. That's grueling. That's like doing a burpee every minute on the minute for 2 hours, but the burpee is a 40-yard dash.
That is a terrifying analogy, but it's pretty accurate. And in soccer, the data shows that the most critical moments, scoring a goal or conceding one, almost always happen immediately following a bout of repeated sprints.
Right.
So if you have great endurance, but poor RSA, you might still be running at the end of the game, but you won't be fast enough to get to the ball. You're just present.
You become a spectator on the field. You have the best seat in the house to watch the other team score. Okay, so we know we need this thing called RSA. The definition they use in the study is performing sprints of 10 seconds or less, with recovery times of usually less than 60 seconds.
Correct. Short burst, short rest, repeat.
So the mission of this deep dive is to settle a debate on how to train this. There's the old school approach. Go run laps until you puke.
Right. Or go lift heavy weights until you can't walk.
And then there's this idea of combined training.
Exactly. We are testing the hypothesis that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Is it better to just focus on one thing, like single mode training? Or do you get a scientific advantage by mixing methods?
But here's where I get stuck, and I think a lot of listeners might too. Why is RSA so hard to train? Why can't I just run a lot of sprints in practice and call it a day?
Because RSA is a physiological paradox. It is a tug of war between two totally different bodily systems. On one side, you have the neuromuscular factors.
That's the engine power.
Think of that as the raw explosion, neural drive, motor unit recruitment. How fast can your brain scream at your muscles to fire?
Okay.
That determines your top speed. But on the other side, you have the metabolic factors.
It's a fuel tank.
Essentially, this is phosphocreatine resynthesis, buffering lactate, clearing waste products. This determines how quickly you recover during that, say, 45-second break.
So if I'm a powerlifter, I have the neuromuscular drive. I'm explosive, but I tank after 2 sprints because my metabolic system is trash.
Exactly. And if you're a marathon runner, you have the metabolic recovery to run all day, but you're slow off the mark every single time because you lack that neural drive.
So RSA requires you to be a hybrid.
It does. And that is why training for it is so tricky. If you train too much for endurance, you tend to lose power. If you train too much for power, you often lose endurance.
So the researchers wanted to see if combined training, putting these things together, actually bridges that gap.
Specifically, they looked at combining resistance training, so weights, plyometric training, so jumping, and sprint training. They wanted to see if mixing these creates a synergy that works better than doing them in isolation.
There is a term they mentioned that sounded pretty fancy. Post-activation performance enhancement, or PPE.
PPE is fascinating. It's one of the core theories behind why you might combine heavy lifting with jumping in the same session. The idea is that if you do a heavy muscular contraction, like a heavy squat, it wakes up the nervous system.
It primes the pump.
Exactly. Imagine swinging a heavy baseball bat before stepping up to the plate with a regular bat. The regular bat feels lighter, you swing it faster. That's a crude analogy, but physiologically, if you follow a heavy lift with a sprint or a jump, theoretically your muscles can produce more force.
Okay, so that's the theory. But we are here for the facts. Let's look at the data they crunched. They screened over 1,000 records and whittled it down to 13 high-quality studies.
Right. And in those studies, you have 422 participants, mostly soccer players, some basketball, handball, futsal, ages 14 to 26.
So we are looking primarily at adolescents and young adults.
Which is the prime age for developing these athletic qualities, yeah.
Now, in terms of who these people were, I noticed the breakdown was 394 males and only 28 females.
Yes, and that's a limitation we have to acknowledge right up front. The data is heavily weighted toward male physiology. We assume there's transferability, but the confidence interval for female athletes is naturally going to be wider.
Fair enough. So keeping that in mind, let's get to the results. They compared this combined training group against 2 others. The control group, who just did their normal sport practice, and the single mode group, who just did one type of training, like only sprints or only weights.
And the primary metric they cared about was RSA mean.
Break that down for us.
It's simple. If you run 6 sprints, we take the average time of all 6. This is the most important metric because it represents your sustained contribution. It doesn't matter if you won the first sprint if you lost the next 5.
Right, makes sense. So did combined training work? Did mixing the methods pay off?
Resoundingly yes. Compared to the control group, the effect size was negative 1.39.
Okay, I know negative usually sounds bad, but in sprinting, negative means faster times, right?
Correct. A negative effect size means the time decreased, and an effect size of 1.39 is considered large. In sports science, where we often fight for 1% improvements, that is a massive signal.
So it works.
It works.
Okay, but that's compared to doing nothing extra. Of course, training is better than not training. What about compared to the people who are just doing single mode training? The ones just sprinting?
It was still better. The effect size was negative 0.46. Now, that's a small to moderate effect, but it was statistically significant. So mixing your training is scientifically superior to hyper-focusing on just one mode.
That's the headline. Variety wins. But there was a nuance in the best sprint time that I found really interesting.
Right. So RSA best is your single fastest time out of the bunch. Usually the very first sprint when you were fresh. Combined training improved this significantly compared to the control group.
Yeah.
But compared to the single mode group, no significant difference.
So if I just spend all day sprinting, my top speed will be just as good as the person doing the complicated mixed workout.
Likely yes. And this brings us back to the principle of specificity. It's king for single efforts. If you want to run one fast sprint, practice running fast sprints.
Yeah.
But remember, the game isn't decided by one sprint. It's decided by the 10th one.
Which brings us to the finding that actually confused me the most. The fatigue index.
Ah, yes. The counterintuitive result.
So the fatigue index measures the drop-off, right? How much slower my last sprint is compared to my first one. I assume that if I get fitter and my RSA improves, my drop-off would get smaller. I wouldn't get as tired.
That is the logical assumption. You think, I'm in better shape, so I won't fade as much. But the data says no significant change in the fatigue index.
Wait, explain that. They got faster, but they didn't get less tired. How is that even possible?
Imagine a graph. Before training, your first sprint is 5.0 seconds. and your last is 6.0 seconds.
Okay.
That's a 1.0 second drop-off. You are fading by 1 second.
Okay, following you.
After training, you are faster. Your first sprint is now 4.8 seconds, and your last sprint is 5.8 seconds.
The drop-off is still 1.0 seconds.
Exactly. You didn't flatten the curve of fatigue, you just shifted the whole curve downwards.
So you're operating at a higher performance level, but the rate at which your body decays, the slope, is identical.
It's identical.
That is weirdly philosophical. You're still suffering just as much, you're just moving faster while you suffer.
Precisely. And for a coach, that is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
A tired player moving at 15 miles per hour is better than a tired player moving at 12 miles per hour.
True.
But it's important for the athlete to know. This training won't make the game feel easier in the last 10 minutes. You'll just be more dangerous while you're hurting.
I love that distinction. It's a faster version of dying.
That is the truth of high-performance sports.
Okay, so combined training works. But combined is a really broad bucket. Did the researchers find a magic recipe? Because I don't want to waste time doing combinations that don't work.
They did. They ran subgroup analyses to find the optimal combination, and there was a clear, undisputed winner.
Drum roll, please.
The champion combination was plyometrics plus sprint training.
Yeah.
We call it PT plus ST.
Just jumping and sprinting. No weights, no heavy squats.
In the context of maximizing RSA, the combination of jumping and sprinting outperformed everything else. The effect size for the mean time was negative 1.46. That is huge.
Why does that specific combo work so well? What's the magic there?
It goes back to that tug-of-war we talked about. Plyometrics targets the neuromuscular side perfectly. It trains something called the stretch shortening cycle, or SSC.
Okay, let's pause. Stretch shortening cycle.
Yeah.
Explain that like I'm 5 years old.
Imagine a rubber band. If you stretch it quickly and let go immediately, what happens?
It snaps back hard.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you stretch it slowly and hold it there for 10 seconds and then let go?
It just kind of flops. It loses the snap.
Exactly. Your muscles and tendons work the same way. When your foot hits the ground in a sprint, that's the stretch. Plyometrics teaches your body to act like that quick rubber band. It trains you to stiffen up and recoil instantly, utilizing stored elastic energy.
It makes you bouncier.
It makes you bouncier, yes. And then the sprint training targets the metabolic side. It improves phosphocreatine recovery. So with PT plus ST, you are upgrading the engine, the explosiveness, and the fuel injection, the recovery.
Without adding unnecessary bulk or fatigue.
Exactly.
And that leads us to the biggest shock of the paper for me. Because when they added resistance training, good old-fashioned heavy lifting to the mix, the results actually got worse.
Much worse. The effect size dropped from that negative 1.46 all the way down to negative 0.33.
That seems insane. I've been told my whole life, squats make you faster, deadlifts make you explosive. Why would adding strength training hurt the results?
This is the most controversial and, I think, important takeaway from the study. The authors point to something called the interference effect.
The body gets confused.
Basically, yes. Think about the cellular signal you're sending your body. Heavy resistance training screams, build structural strength, repair muscle fibers, grow. This is a very high fatigue, high cost signal.
Okay, so the body goes into construction mode.
Right. But sprinting and plyometrics scream, be elastic, be quick, optimize energy turnover. These are conflicting adaptations. And when you try to cram them all into the same training block, the noise from the heavy lifting fatigue seems to dampen the fine-tuned adaptations you get from the speed work.
So it's not that lifting is bad, it's that trying to do everything at once creates a bottleneck.
Exactly. It's an issue of programming. If your goal for the next 6 weeks is specifically to improve your repeat sprint ability, heavy back squats might actually be counterproductive during that block.
So they generate too much neuromuscular fatigue.
Too much. You're trying to be a bulldozer and a race car at the same time.
That is a massive paradigm shift for a lot of coaches who believe in the grind. More isn't always better.
Better is better. And specifically, velocity is better. The study suggests that if you want speed endurance, you should train with speed and elasticity, not grinding slow reps.
So if I'm a coach planning my preseason, I shouldn't throw out the weights, right? I just need to be smarter.
Correct. You would use a periodization model. You might have a strength block early in the off-season where you lift heavy. But then as you get closer to the season, you transition to a power speed block where you drop the heavy weights and focus on plyos and sprints.
You build the engine first, then you tune it for racing.
That's the perfect way to put it. You use the PT plus ST combination to translate that raw strength into repeated power. Don't try to ride 2 horses with 1 saddle.
Clear enough. I want to touch on the applicability of this quickly. Does it matter if I'm 16 or 25?
Interestingly, no. The analysis showed no significant difference between adolescents and adults. The physiological response to jumping and sprinting seems pretty universal across that age range.
And sport. Is this just for soccer players?
No significant difference there either. Soccer, basketball, handball. Because the fundamental movement stop, start, explode, recover is the currency of all these sports.
Right. The mechanics of human movement don't change just because the ball is different. Now, we mentioned the limitations earlier regarding the gender split in the data, but there was also a note in the paper about the certainty of evidence.
Yes. This is a standard part of a systematic review called a grade analysis. They rated the certainty as low to very low.
That sounds alarming. Should we even trust this?
It sounds worse than it is. In exercise science, it is almost impossible to get a high certainty rating because of blinding. In a pill study, you can give someone a sugar pill and they don't know if they are taking the medicine.
Right.
In a workout study, you know if you are sprinting or lifting weights.
You can't really placebo a box jump. Here, imagine you jumped on this box.
Exactly. And often, the people timing the sprints are the researchers themselves. That introduces a risk of bias. It doesn't mean the data is fake, but it means we have to acknowledge that human error or unconscious bias could nudge the stopwatch.
Fair enough. So the signal is strong, especially with that large effect size, but the methodology has natural limitations that come with sports science.
Correct. We take the signal, but we verify it in our own training.
Let's bring this home for the listener. Whether they are a coach, an athlete, or just someone interested in human performance, what is the tactical takeaway?
The takeaway is that RSA is the money metric for team sports.
Yeah.
And you cannot maximize it by just playing the game or doing more of the same. You need a dedicated intervention.
And that intervention should look like?
Based on this meta-analysis, the special sauce is combining plyometrics and sprint training. Think bounding, box jumps, and hurdle hops, paired with maximal effort sprints with short rest periods.
And if I love the weight room?
Don't delete it, but schedule it wisely. If you are in a phase where you need to get faster and fitter for the game, back off the heavy iron. Avoid the interference effect. Let your body focus on becoming a spring, not a bulldozer.
And remember, even if you do everything right, you're still going to feel like you're dying in the 80th minute.
You'll just be a faster version of dying.
That's the quote of the episode right there, a faster version of dying.
It's the truth of high-performance sports.
For those of you who want to geek out on the specific work-to-rest ratios, the exact jump drills, and the statistical breakdowns, please go check out the full paper.
Right. It's the effect of combined strength, plyometric, and sprint training on repeated sprint ability in team sport athletes, published in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine. It is open access too.
And while you're optimizing your training, make sure you optimize your feed. Hit that follow button, turn on notifications. We have some deep dives coming up on nutrition and recovery that you do not want to miss.
Looking forward to those.
I want to leave you with a thought based on that interference effect. We saw that trying to force the body to adapt to two opposite things at once, strength and speed endurance, resulted in a worse outcome.
It blunted the signal.
It diluted the effort. Exactly.
Yeah.
So where else in our lives are we creating our own interference effects? Where are we trying to pursue two contradictory goals simultaneously and ending up with mediocre results in both?
Focus isn't just about what you do. It's about what you choose not to do right now.
Something to chew on. Thanks for diving in with us.